So, hello everybody, welcome back to my channel, Book Time with Elvis, with me, Mark, and I'm joined today by the wonderful Farah from Bookstalgic and our old friend, emphasis on the old, Greg from Another Bibliophile Reads.
Hello.
Hello.
So, I hope you're all doing well. Whoever's joining us, looks like we've got one viewer at the moment, and it's William here. Greetings from Tyler, Texas.
Ooh, Texas.
Yeah. So
nice and warm down there.
Nice and warm. Yeah, I know. Tell me about it. It's freezing. Absolutely freezing here. It's to the point because it's quite deep, the snow. So when Elvis is out there, if we're out there for more than 10 minutes, he gets those little ice balls that kind of form on the bottom of his fur. So it's funny. And then like later on, I'm walking around the house and I step into a little puddle of water, and I realize at first I'm thinking, what have you done? And then I realize, of course, it's the snow that's come in and melting. So how are you two doing? Are you well, Farah? How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing okay. Just, going from one computer to the next in the middle of the day, the middle of work. But yeah, I'm doing well. Have you guys ever heard of anything called a silent book club?
Is that one of those things where you go to like a restaurant or a cafe or something?
Wait a second.
I've seen it somewhere. I'm sure Gina Stania did a video on it, no?
Yes, that's where you just go in the same, and you all just read different books. And
you all go out to a cafe and you just don't talk to each other.
And nobody talks. Yes, yeah. It's like an introvert's dream. But I did one of those last night. We had one at our local library, and my sister was like, "Oh, do you want to go to this thing? It sounds kind of fun." So we went, and it was supposed to snow, so we were the only two that showed up. But it was fun. They had wine, like you could drink wine if you wanted. They had these cozy chairs in this little corner of the library. And so we just sat there and we just read and didn't talk. And it was great. Like, not to have anybody interrupt you and just to relax. So it was fun. It was the first time I tried that. And it was funny. I mean, we're just like, okay, but it was fun.
Yeah, that sounds sort of like the reading sprints they do on some channels.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I find myself sometimes getting distracted when I've joined those sprints. I'm supposed to be reading, but then I don't know, something flashes on the phone. I should probably put it away, and then I'm like, oh, what's that? And then I click, and then it's like, oh, and you come back and they say, how many pages did you read? And you're like,
yeah,
a couple.
Definitely.
I have to say though, Farah, you're kind of my new hero at the moment.
Really?
Oh my God, I can't believe that you got through Clarissa, and it's
wow,
calling to me. I have to say, ever since I watched your video, I'm like, but also I like the style. I mean, I'm thinking of starting Anna Karenina, which is nowhere near as big, but I just like the way that you did it. Like you started vlogging, you kind of held it up, then you read a bit, then you talked about the bits at the the initial impressions from the characters and this kind of stuff. And I was thinking, it's a really nice way to do it.
Yeah, well, it was one of those books that I knew that I wanted to try to read that 100 greatest books of all time list. And so I ordered the first book. I had never heard of Clarissa before. And I got the book in the mail and I was like, oh my God, this book is huge. I didn't know. And so I'm like, well, if I start my BookTube channel now, it's going to take me like 5 years to read this. So I'm going to wait. I'm going to read it first, and then I'll start a BookTube channel. So I started vlogging knowing that I was going to start a channel at some point. And then a year went by and I'm like, okay, I just got to start the channel and people just have to know. But yeah, I mean, I definitely lost some footage in there. I think the whole 2022 is gone, but it was fun. Yeah, it was fun to kind of document that. And then I had to try to find all the clips and put them together. But yeah, it was cool because somebody in the comments was like, oh, I really want to read Clarissa. So I'm going to come back to your vlog and just like check with you at each section to kind of compare notes and stuff. So yeah, it was an achievement. It was a tough book to get through, but I really liked it.
Well, I think it's a cool thing that it's one of those where people look at it and think, yeah, I'm going to read that one day. And then they can look at, your vlog and say, okay, so Farah's read it. And it is something, it adds a bit of motivation, I think, the fact that
Yeah.
it's like, oh yeah, I can go back to that, I can watch that, because it's probably not, I doubt there's a huge amount of booktubers that have read it.
No, I was surprised to see anybody even watch the video because I didn't think people would click on it if you haven't read it, but when I Googled to see how many people had book reviews on it, I did see Steve Donahue had one.
Well,
So he
what
must have
hasn't
read
Steve
it.
Donahue read?
Yeah.
Yeah, we
But
read it
there
in a
were only a
weekend.
couple. Yeah, there's only a couple people.
Well,
Yeah,
that's a good
hopefully
idea.
more
I mean,
people.
I'm going to be doing Proust in 2025.
Oh
And
yeah, that's a
I
chunker.
know one of the suggestions that people say is every day keep a journal. And I'm terrible at writing. My handwriting is atrocious, and I'd be going back. What was that word? The.
Yeah.
So maybe I'll just do a little vlog every day. Do
You could do a YouTube short, couldn't you, Greg? Every day, just a minute or so of
a
your
1 minute summary
Yeah.
of what I read in Proust today.
Yeah.
Proust.
That's gonna be hard to go for a whole year, though. But I don't know.
I don't think people would watch it for a year.
You never know. Maybe.
You never know.
Or do it as weekly. A 1 minute. So every week there's like a 8-minute video of what I read in Proust today or this week.
Do you know Sean Standfast, Farah?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, you do. You know that Clarissa is his kryptonite or his nemesis in the reading world, right?
Oh, I didn't know that.
Oh my God, the poor man.
Shingles.
Well, 3 times he's tried to read it,
Really?
and twice he ended up with shingles on the eye and had to give it up.
Oh my gosh.
And the 3rd time he got evicted from his house. Yeah, he had to then move house. So for him, it's like this book. I think he's desperate to read it, but every time he picks it up, something terrible happens. So it's
like a curse.
Yeah, it's horrific.
Oh.
But I have to say, I admire you as well reading it in the paperback, because I was thinking myself, I thought, well, shall I get it? They're not that sturdy these days, and I'm thinking,
Mark,
read it on the Kindle.
The complete works of what Richardson in Delphi, 99 cents in the United States.
There you go. And it's not like we need a modern translation, is it? Because it was written in English anyway. So
yeah, it was kind of hard to lug around all over the place. I will say that, and it's heavy. So you're reading it, especially when you're right in the beginning, and it's like heavier on one side, and you're just trying to get comfortable. But yeah.
I'm thinking of doing something next year, and I don't know whether to do it throughout the year or to do it as just a month. But I noticed, I was looking back through my Kindle, and every day almost I buy I get a free book, at least, from these book aggregate, the ebook aggregators or whatever they're called, BookBub or something. And they usually have free ones. And I always choose the free one because I think, why not? It's a free book. Who knows? And of course, now I've built up quite a lot of them. And I'm thinking, I've never read one of them. I've never read one that I've got for free. And I'm thinking maybe I should take a month on like a free books only thing. Yeah. I don't know.
The month of reading free.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because there's a ton. Most of the time, they're criminal things. And it's like, book 1 in a series or book 5 in a series to kind of maybe pull you in.
Right.
But some of them do look pretty good, actually. I might do that. I'm going to pencil
that's not a bad event.
Yeah, like an experiment.
A month. Well, hold on. It's called Kindle Kobo Cleanout.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You're supposed to read books that have been sitting on your device for a long time.
Yeah, I need to do that. There's a lot on there, and especially because I seem to double up quite a lot with having the physical book and the ebook and the audio book these days as well. It's like,
Yeah.
Anyway, we're here to talk about espionage mostly, I suppose. I will ask you, if you're still here after we've discussed it, maybe what you've read, espionage or otherwise. But I know a few people were a bit somewhat disappointed we didn't end up really speaking much about The Secret Agent last time. So I think we'll start off with that, if you're comfortable with that. It's a shame Jim's not here, of course, because for him as well, it was a first time. I believe, Greg, it's not your first time, right?
No, I read it at university in the 80s.
It was my third time, and Farah, of course, it was your first time as well, right? So at least we've got one newbie for Conrad's Secret Agent present. Just curious how it went, what you thought of it. You've read Heart of Darkness, Farah, you said, I think?
No, I haven't read that one. I
This
think
is your first
did.
Conrad.
Yeah.
I'll show it to the viewers of her. There we go, the Secret Agent.
Oh, yeah. I have this one.
Uh-huh.
I have mine on my Kindle, so nothing to show.
What, the 99p Delphi Complete Works of Conrad? Or?
Yeah.
I actually have 2 complete works of Conrad.
Mm-hmm.
I have the Delphi, but the Delphi I have was based on old Gutenberg texts.
Oh, yeah.
So you don't have any like italicized text. Like in Heart of Darkness, there is a first sentence. The ship is the Nelly is italicized in the original, and the Delphi is just not there.
Yeah.
And that's just was the limitations of the text at the time when Gutenberg was starting up. They couldn't do italics, so they just cut it. And I said, well, I'll buy a new one. And so the new one was based on more modern texts. So I actually have 2 complete works of Conrad on my Kindle.
Nice.
Super. So what do you think, Farah, your first introduction to the wonderful world of Joseph Conrad?
I thought it was good. I right when I started it, well, I listened to it on audio, and I had the narrator, David Horowitz, I think his name was. So his voice was great. The whole thing was told in a British accent. So when we were talking about how English wasn't his second or his first language, I was really surprised because it seemed great. I mean, he just has a very good talent of writing in English. And I think listening to it with a British accent, just made me think it was a British author. So the audio part was great. I thought he did such a great job with the descriptions of London. It just felt very dark and foggy and depressing how he set the scene. I was really focused on the character of Winnie, actually. I really liked following her throughout the story. And I didn't care quite as much about the anarchy plot. I got a little bit confused about the motivation of it. At first, well, I was like, uh-oh, like I'm already lost, but it didn't really matter in the end. But yeah, I really liked
time they're a bit confused. I think that's kind of the nature of anarchy, isn't it? It's not like the socialist or communist kind of terrorism or something like that in the early 20th century, with Stalin robbing banks and things, because at least they have a clear political goal. But these anarchists, not so much, right? So I think that's part of it, Farah, that this kind of lack of direction or ideology.
Yeah, it just felt very vague.
Well, they were also talking about how science was ascending.
Yeah,
and
that's true.
Their real purpose was, let's show that science isn't all it's cracked up to be.
Yeah.
And that was the motivation, and get people to lose, let's just say, faith in science by bombing the observatory.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. And there was something also about the police, how they didn't feel like the police was doing enough, but it was interesting. I didn't get that part, but yeah, getting back to Winnie, I just thought she was a really interesting character. And right away, I'm thinking to myself, like, how does she feel having to run this weird little shop they have downstairs? Like, what must that have been like for her? Or you kind of figure out right away she's in a marriage that's kind of a marriage of convenience. She's with him to keep her brother safe and her mother and everything. So I was really glad the story kind of went back around to her and their dynamic and all that stuff. And of course, Stevie was painted as such an innocent, sweet person. They really focused on that a lot. And honestly, I didn't see the little twist coming. I didn't see it at all. So I was
Well,
surprised.
I don't know. I know William's saying here that he's hoping to read it next week, and
Okay.
but I think, to be honest, William, if you don't mind, there may well be spoilers in this conversation, because I think
Yeah, you kind of like.
a book from 1907, I think we're allowed perhaps to maybe spoil it. So we'll see how we go. I mean, just be aware that is a possibility.
Well, I'll try to be vague.
Yeah.
I mean, because it all talks about the setting up Verloc. You have to do something, and then it cuts, and it starts talking about the body being discovered.
Yeah.
All in the newspaper, and you're going, "Oh, poor Mr. Verloc," you know.
Mhm.
You know, he's dead, and I think Conrad did a very nice job with that twist.
Mhm.
Leading you to believe one thing when something else was actually happening.
Yeah.
And he did that one other spot. I thought it was just brilliant. It's towards the end, Winnie is out. I'm not going to say what, because there's a spoiler. William's there. I'm going to try to leave it a little vague. Where Winnie's done something, and she meets one of the other anarchists, and the other anarchist is thinking one thing.
Oh, you can go for it, Greg. Say what you want.
Okay, it's after Winnie's murdered Mr. Verloc.
Yeah.
And he meets the anarchist on the street, and he still thinks Mr. Verloc is the one that's been blown up in the. So they're talking across to each other, both sort of talking about the death of Mr. Verloc, not actually knowing that the anarchist does not know it wasn't Verloc who blown up. And for whatever reason, Winnie thinks the anarchist knows she's murdered him.
Yeah.
And I'm going, that was really rather well done.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I think, I've had a mixed relationship with this book. It's the third time I've read it. The first time I really enjoyed it. Second time I was like, meh. And this time I enjoyed it again. So I don't really know why that should be. But I think that it's interesting when you say that about the twists and whatnot, because this is a big departure for him as an author, isn't it? I mean, it's not, his other work and the work he's known for is really nothing.
He did sea stories. Every other, Heart of Darkness is sort of a sea story.
Yeah.
Lord Jim, of course, is. Mm-hmm. Now, I have not read Nostromo. I'm not sure if that's a sea story.
I believe it is, yeah.
I thought that was the one set in a mining. Mine set in South America.
In my head, I haven't read it, but I seem to remember a BBC series or something of Nostromo. Okay. But I might be wrong. It is, it's a tale of the seaboard.
Okay.
Set in the fictional South American Republic of Costaguana.
Yeah, didn't he work wasn't he a sailor, or he
was
had a different career beforehand, right?
He was a captain. Was it a British merchant service or something like that?
Yeah, I think if I remember right, he went to Britain when he was, I think he was
a teenager.
Yeah, 17 or something like that, and he ended up working on the ships, worked his way up, and spent a good maybe 20 years or so at least, right? As working on ships. So yeah. So we have another comment here. I'll just get to that before we push on. Hello there. Oh, Greece. Now we're talking. That's going to be a bit warmer than here. That's for sure.
Nice.
One thing I found, which I didn't really think about the other times, is regarding the name Stevie. I thought that seems rather modern. I struggle to think of a Victorian to be known as something like Stevie. Stephen, yes. Even for me, Steve is a bit of a stretch. It doesn't, they seem to go in for these long names. It's...
Well, what I kind of noticed this time is that he's got a very diminutive name.
because of his character.
Well, and I noticed that my mother-in-law took care of her brother, who was her own kind of Stevie. You know, he's
Right.
mentally disabled, and she used the diminutive form with him his entire life.
Yeah.
And it's kind of really, I'm not gonna give away his real name, but it's kind of like, say there's a guy in his late 60s and you're calling him Stevie. You know, it's
Yeah.
just,
Yeah.
you're automatically sort of lowering his possibilities.
Hmm.
And it seemed to me that Stevie maybe could have done something, that he is very impassioned about. What was it? The horse not
Yeah.
being whipped,
Yeah.
and got all upset. Which also brought me to Dostoevsky's scene in Crime and Punishment. There's also
Oh
a scene
God. Yeah. Yeah.
with a horse
Horrific.
being whipped.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Yeah,
But
it's
the one is I'm interested. I know, Farrah. We can talk about Winnie, and she's an interesting case too. Like you said, is that she really was just there for Stevie,
Yeah, totally.
and then when he was gone, it really did not take much for her to kill Mr. Verloc.
No,
And the thing is,
not much at all.
while he is guilty, he's not. He had no intention of harming Stevie. It really was an accident.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I think when I was reading it, that was something I was surprised at, because after she did it, which I wasn't expecting that either,
Mm-hmm.
she had no remorse. She had that 1 second where she felt free, and then she was scared, that she was going to get caught and get killed or hung or whatever. But I noticed that zero remorse at all. So it's like, who's the worst person in a way?
Mr. Verloc did not really mourn the loss of Stevie.
No, he didn't at all. You're right. Yeah, he really didn't. He did in the film, though, and I was telling you guys about our buddy David Suchet. That performance, he was so like crying and just felt so awful and guilty over the whole thing. So in the film, when Winnie killed him, it was worse, because you kind of felt bad for Verloc. Like, he was like, it was just an accident. But in the book, I didn't really feel bad for Verloc. It was like, oh, okay.
He was just so practical. I mean, just being the agent, like, he wasn't really a good spying agent. He was just there to go along and take his payouts and think, I'm giving you lots of good service. And really, he's just sort of like one of those people, if he was employed in the United States, would be let go.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it was a tragic ending, bleak, sad, but I think the ending was written really well.
It was.
That scene on the train, you just, yeah.
Mm.
And you sort of see it coming. It's like he's going to ditch her.
Oh, yeah.
And he's, oh, I got the money. Yeah, I'll just let you go on your own.
Yeah.
And he did not really feel remorse either, did he?
No, not as much as a normal person would, I guess.
Right.
But maybe a little bit. I don't know. The professor was he was an interesting character too. Just walking around with a bomb on him all the time.
Yeah.
Like, don't mess with me. We're both going down.
Yeah, actually, yeah, just a whole bunch of horrible people generally.
Yeah.
But I was always interested by what Verloc does, because although it's written, I think it's, written 20, 30 years after it's set, something like that, when 1906, 1907, set in 1886, 1887. It seems even in the early 1900s, it's quite, I'm surprised. I don't know if it caused any consternation or outcry or like surprise over the fact that he's basically he's running a sex shop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It just seems to me that
it's very matter. I mean, they never went into it, and the police knew it was there, and Just
What
sort of
when
red
what he
paint.
does, I'm sure they describe even early on a little bit.
Well, I think like, when
And
I
it doesn't
first
leave much to the imagination.
no, when I first read that scene, I had to go back and read it again because I saw something about pictures, but I wasn't thinking it was like the pictures that it was.
Oh yeah, so okay. The window contained photographs of more or less undressed dancing girls,
Yeah,
nondescript packages in wrappers like patent medicines, closed yellow paper envelopes, very flimsy, marked with 2 and 6 and heavy black figures, a few numbers of ancient French. You see, maybe it's just like the imagery is so obvious. Yeah, the fact that it's French
yeah,
comic publications. The obviously the photographs, the medications probably being some
yeah,
sexual thing as well. With here it goes. Where is it? Bottles of marking ink and rubber stamps, a few books with titles hinting at impropriety, and a few old copies of obscure newspapers. So
yeah.
yeah,
I mean that's great writing right there. That just makes it seem classy.
Well, one of
yeah,
my favorite scenes was they talk about the gentleman going into the shop, and if Winnie was there,
Yeah,
they would just buy stationery.
yeah.
And
yeah,
then they leave the shop and just drop the stationery in the rubbish bin or was it somewhere in the street. Like
yeah.
they couldn't admit to a woman that they're buying naughty things.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that's what I was thinking too when she was down there, they weren't going to go that way. Yeah,
I don't know if anyone watching this has read it, and if you want to chime in,
Yeah,
feel
chime
free
in.
to, of course. But yes, and are you tempted, Farah, to maybe try out Heart of Darkness or something else by Conrad?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely
Heart
I
of
would.
Darkness, yeah, is the way to go.
It's a good one. Yeah, I'll put it on the list. I liked it. I liked his writing so much. I can imagine I would probably like anything else.
I
Yeah.
quite like the one we can't mention.
Can you give me a hint?
Okay, yeah, the Narcissus.
The N word of the Narcissus.
Oh,
I have not read that one.
Oh, really? Oh, I enjoyed it. But then,
Okay.
of course, it's a bit high. It's not one of those you want to sit on the bus or train reading and people looking over. What's the title of your book?
oh, what
Mark?
are you reading today?
Mark?
Yeah,
No one
Okay.
knows what you're reading on a Kindle.
true.
See, Mr. Verloc would definitely have stocked those in his shop, wouldn't he?
Yes, for sure. What did you guys read last year for your group read for this?
The Spy Who Came In From the Cold.
Okay. Is
Now,
that
that's more traditional espionage
okay?
fiction.
Yeah, this one read more like a mystery, I guess, in a way.
Well, it's very
I liked it.
it's very early on in the genre, really. In a video I put out, I think it's the most recent video I put out, I read an essay. Jim and I were discussing it briefly last week.
Yeah.
That's in that book. And he says, it's ridiculous that obviously there were no detective stories before there were detectives. It starts in the 19th century with Edgar Allan Poe and Wilkie Collins, people like that. And yet, there have been spies since biblical times and probably even before. And
Yep.
yet we don't really have spy fiction until, well, I think Conrad is probably the earliest one that he mentions. I know he mentions E. Phillips Oppenheim and a couple of others, but I think this is very early on. Whereas last year's one, The Spy Who Came In From the Cold, it's a Cold War classic. I mean, it's a great book, Farah. If you do like the spy stories, it's more what you would expect from a spy story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The old British agent against the dastardly Soviets. So.
Yep.
Yeah, but no, Conrad's a strange one for me. I think he can be very hit and miss, but he's definitely worth checking out. And Heart of Darkness is what Heart of Darkness is a one-day read. Yeah, it's 80, 90
and Lord
pages.
Jim are his two most famous.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. So,
And what I want to read is Under Western Eyes.
oh yeah, yeah,
That's all about the Russian Revolution.
yeah.
Mhm.
And
That would
I think
be-
that might also qualify as espionage work, if I'm not mistaken.
Well,
I've not read it, so I don't know for sure. But
is it a novel or is it nonfiction?
oh, it's a novel. I'm pretty
It's
sure.
a novel. Yeah. Well, it's fascinating. Fascinating period.
Mhm.
Anything else to say on that? I don't know. Probably not. Other than if you haven't read it, you should probably check out.
Yeah.
Conrad.
Absolutely.
I think a lot more people would like it than you think.
Also, I'm fair. I also listened to the audiobook while reading
Oh,
it.
you did?
I was trying to look up who the narrator was. It was from Audible. It was a free version from Audible, and he did a good job.
Yeah, I thought mine was a free version from my Libby app through the library, and
Okay.
I will say he sounded a lot like the actor. Gosh, what's his name?
Let me look him
It's
up.
Ian McDiarmid, I think, the guy who
Oh,
played.
Palpatine.
Yes, he sounded like him. So as I'm reading it, I thought I had that visual at first.
David Thrillowis. David Threll is
Okay,
the UK one anyway.
yeah, it's a different one for me.
Yeah. Is it Threlfell? Yeah.
Mine
It's
was
just
David
quite fun.
Threlfell.
Yeah. Because he's someone, I do admire these actors sometimes because he does it well, I think, Greg, wouldn't you say? It was pretty good.
It was very good. And hold on for 1 second. I sometimes get lost reading Joseph Conrad.
Yeah.
He's just so dense
Yeah,
that having the narration slows your reading down.
it does.
If you try to speed read Conrad, it's not going to work. You'll just you lose all the detail and the meaning of him. So
Yeah.
that
And the
helps.
This David Threlfell, he, as I was saying, I admire the versatility of these people because he's well known in England for many things. He's been on a lot of films and television, but one of the television shows that he was on, he was the main star. I think they did an American version of it. I think it was quite popular, called oh my gosh, Shameless.
Oh yeah, I've heard of that.
Yeah, I think in the American one they have William H. Macy as the main guy, but it was this guy, and then he's also in if you've seen the film Master and Commander.
Mm-mm.
Oh, okay, well, doesn't matter. But he was excellent actually. I didn't believe it was him at first because I thought he had the way he speaks in Shameless is so different to how he speaks in this audiobook. I was like, oh, all right, okay, wow, there we go.
Yeah, it's a real talent. I'm listening one of the espionage books I'm listening to right now is The Alice Network by Kate Quinn. And that audio narrator is from New Zealand, but I would never know. She does a perfect American accent, a perfect British accent, Scottish. She's speaking French. It's like, oh my gosh, it is amazing.
Well, I think you've given us a good in there, Farah. I think to discuss what other, first off, espionage fiction or books that you've read this week, and then following that, any other books. But this Alice Network, is this the one? Because I'm desperate to find out what happens with this one-legged spy.
Yeah. No, that's a different one. So I'm still reading the other one you're thinking of is I gotta pull up the title real quick.
Woman of No Importance?
Yeah, A Woman of No Importance, the untold story of the American spy who helped win World War II. Yeah, I'm not done with this yet, but this is excellent. It's so good. This woman was amazing. So I think I was telling you guys she wanted to work as a diplomat in France. She kind of got shot down because she was a woman. She had a hunting accident, so she shot herself in the foot by accident. So she, walks around with a wooden leg from the knee down. and while this was all happening, she still wanted to help out France. So she took a job working for the ambulance corps with the French army. And they took notice of her. She was really, really good at learning languages. I think she spoke 6 languages.
Wow.
So Spanish, French, German, Russian, Italian, and English perfectly. And I think the people in Britain got word of her and decided to recruit her as a spy and put her in Vichy France to just kind of get some information and transfer it back to them. But she was so good at what she did, and she had a great ability to just blend in, and she took on like 4 different personas. She could change her appearance really well. Nobody suspected her. And so she was working for this organization called the SOE, the Special Operations Executive. And, so she did that. She went undercover as a journalist for the New York Post. So she was pretending to gather stories. She did write stories and send them back. But she was basically the first female agent to be sent out, a first-class secret liaison.
Cool.
In history. Yeah. It's just so good. I think the writing's really good. It's reading like a novel. It's just reading really. It's just fun to hear everything that she goes through.
I've already put that on my list of things to get from last week.
Yeah,
I'm off my book buying ban.
Yeah, I think you would like it.
Amazing though, aren't they? I mean, the balls, forgive the expression, but the balls on these people, male or female, I just cannot imagine. I mean, how terrifying to be undercover against the Nazis, for one thing. I mean, it's just unbelievable.
Yeah, and I'm at the part where they've kind of figured her out. They still don't know she's a woman. They're not suspecting that, but they kind of know the location. She's gotten out of some really scary situations, like climbing through windows, but she can't run. That's the other thing. She can do everything, but she can't run away. So she's.
I don't know if this is a spoiler or not, but probably not. But do you know if she survives, or you have to wait?
Yeah.
Oh, so she does survive. Okay.
Yeah.
That takes a little bit out of it, though, doesn't it?
I know she lived at least into her 70s. I don't know.
Oh, wow.
I didn't look into her yet, but very good. It's really good.
It was an amazing, the SOE, and there's a great book, and I always go on about him. This author I like, Giles Milton. He writes funny, not funny, but like not obscure even. I don't know. He's a historian. He writes excellent historical narratives, but he chooses such a range of subjects. And one of the books he wrote was called. Now I have to be careful because there's a book with a similar title. And there's also a film of the other book. I think his is Churchill's Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare.
Oh, that's a good title.
That's the name of the book. But there's a film out now based off a book by another author called Damian Lewis, not the actor, called The Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare. So you see they're almost identical. The Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare looks at one specific event to do with some goings on in Africa against the Germans or whatever. But the Milton's book looks into all sorts of these operations and all sorts of these kind of characters like this woman, and it's just incredible. It's just incredible. And how like a lot of them started because they also came up with like new technologies as well, right? Like the sticky bomb and stuff like this. And, people just pottering around in their garden shed, doing experiments, and then suddenly, it's adopted by the Ministry of Defense, and within a few months is put into action against the Germans, as it were. So it's just amazing stories. So.
Yeah, she talks about even these little pills that they could take that would give you symptoms of like typhoid fever. So she could get people out of prison that way by getting them into the hospital and then smuggling them out. It's just so crazy. So cool.
Yeah, amazing times. But yeah. So that's one of them. And you mentioned already this Alice Network, was it?
Yeah, yep. The Alice Network. That one is just historical fiction, and it's a dual timeline. So you're following this woman named Eve who was a spy during World War I, and she worked within the Alice Network, which I guess was a group of female spies based in France or Germany, but they were gathering information for the British. And so it tells her story of how she became or how she got recruited into that. And that's, I shouldn't be reading these at the same time because I'm kind of mixing them up a little bit. But this one, she was just very good at lying. She could lie really easily, and she also spoke perfect French. So yeah, I'm not that too far into that one. But then the other timeline is an American woman who travels to, she's trying to go to Switzerland to have an abortion. She's only 18 and she gets pregnant, and her parents want her to have an abortion. So she's traveling there, and then she ditches her mom and gets on a train and goes to England to try to find this Eve woman to help her locate her missing cousin who lives in France. So it's kind of a mystery, but it also has the espionage timeline. So far it's really good. Yeah, it's really good. I like the writing.
And you were also reading, or did you finish The Spy and the Traitor? I
didn't finish that yet either. So I have 3 books going at the same time. But yeah, that one is amazing too. I'm trying to remember where I am in that one. I just learned about Agent Boot, I think his name was. Michael Foote. So he's this one I'm loving too. And there's a scene that I really liked between him and that British recruiter from the MI6. I think his name was Richard Bromhead, something like that.
Bromhead, yeah.
Bromhead, yeah, where they meet in the restaurant and they're trying to figure out, like, are you trying to recruit me? Are you, like, back and forth? They're just trying to, like, one tiny little clue. They just need something to show, like, whose side are you on? And yeah, but this one's really good. I mean, I think that one really shows you a lot of the motivation of why someone would want to do that, why someone would go against the KGB and spy, it's just so dangerous.
Yeah, I did Spy and the Traitor too, and it's like I would never do that.
No, I can barely get on the YouTube live.
Well, I hope you're impressed that I remembered all that far. I have to say,
yes, I am very impressed. Thank you.
I don't know if that makes me come across as a kind of stalker, though, if I remember all 3 books that you happen to be reading at the moment.
No, well, it helped because then I didn't have to try to start up the chat about it. So
to be fair, I actually really only remembered 2, and I suppose I had an interest in both because one, I was desperate to find out what happens with this woman with one leg. I was remembering that from last week, and then of course I've read The Spy and the Traitor, and you had mentioned the Alice Network a bit earlier, so it wasn't like amazing powers of mind. Greg,
okay,
what about you?
I got 2. Right. First, I want to do the one that no one's talked about on this channel yet so far. I'm actually listening to the audiobook, but I also have it on Kindle because it was $1.99, and I can't say this is the biography of Ian Fleming.
I got it for the 99p or 199 as well. Yeah,
it's a brand new book. It's a 2024 publication about Ian Fleming. And it starts off, the author is giving his introduction about how he wanted to write or got hired to write this book. And he flat out says, I'm not sure I want to write about this man. And then the family said, well, take your time. And he eventually did want to write about him. And one of the most interesting comments he made early in the introduction, he says, Ian Fleming would have deserved a biography if he had never written a James Bond story. He was that important to the British spy network during World War II.
Wow.
And I of course, I'm not there yet. This is an 855-page book, so I'm at page like 136 around there somewhere. So lots more to go on. But what's really kind of fun is when he's going through Fleming's younger life, he will have these interludes, like he's dating this girl from Switzerland, and he meets her mother, and then guy breaks it. He says, "Well, her mother appeared in one of the Bond novels under this name," and it's happening all the time. These people in Fleming's life reappear in his fiction under slightly different names and disguises. So,
Well, you know
Now
where
I'm going to have
James,
to read
you
more
know where
Bond
James
books.
Bond comes from.
What?
You know where the name James Bond comes from?
No.
It was
No,
not the original name for the character.
no, but I believe, unless it's like one of these urban legends, it's just the name of an ornithologist. He had a book on he had a book on birds, or someone gave him a book on birds, and the writer was James Bond.
Wow.
Well, here it mentioned that in an early draft of Casino Royale, I forgot the name. It was the name of some French philosopher. It was James Scarlett or something with an S. And then he scratched it out and wrote Bond.
Uh-huh.
So I've been really enjoying it. It's a really well done biography. He's moving on, and it's showing how Fleming was built to become the writer that he was, all the influences that came into his life. And what's really fascinating right now is just how important books were to not only Ian Fleming, but the English society at the time. He was born in 1908,
Mm-hmm.
and he's still in his early 20s in this part. And he comes from a very rich and influential family.
Well, his brother is very interesting in his own right, Peter.
Peter wrote books on his own, and there's a comment that at one point of life, if you mentioned, the author Fleming, they would immediately assume you were talking about Peter Fleming, not Ian Fleming.
Yeah.
So again, I've only just gotten started on this, but this looks like Mark, to use the word, this is going to be a corker of a book.
Oh well, I might have to pick it up then.
If it continues on as well as it's continued on now, it's going to be a corker, just because Fleming is just such a interesting man. I mean, he was quite the ladies' man. He just mentions how many women were just in and out of his life. I'm going like, I never had that opportunity when I was young.
His brother was married to quite a famous British actress, actually.
I think
so. They were Celia Johnson, Dame Celia Johnson. But I don't know. Have you read any of Peter Fleming's books, Greg?
No, I've never heard of Peter Fleming before.
Oh right, okay. I mean, I've read a few, and I quite like him. There's one where he goes off. He's a big travel writer, right? So he travels, and of course, again, he's traveling in such an interesting period, through the late 20s, 30s.
Right.
He goes off to China. He does all these things. But there's one, and I've got it in a terrible, beat up old copy, called what is it? Brazil Adventure or something. And I don't know if any of you read David Gann, is it, or David Gran?
David Graham. Yeah, I've read a couple of his books.
Lost City Z.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's about an English explorer called Percy Fawcett and whatever. And this, what Peter Fleming does is he ends up going to Brazil with this group of people in the aftermath of this Fawcett's disappearance, right, to try and find them. But it's just such an appallingly, terribly executed expedition. They're not prepared for it. They're not planned. I think he's a newspaper correspondent, but he goes along with them, and it's very good. Well worth reading. One
more thing about the book is that apparently Ian Fleming was the basis for a character in a book. The book was Public Faces, was published in 1932 by a man named Nicholson. I don't know what his first name is, but the whole idea of this novel, and I got to check the text from the audio, that they built an atomic bomb out of a new metal, and it's threatened to go off. And the Reuters reporter, which was based on Fleming, because at this point Fleming was working as a Reuters reporter, stopped the bomb from going off. So now I have to look up that book. See, can I get this?
It's a rabbit hole, Greg.
It is. That the thing is, when a book gets rabbit holes, that's when you know it's a corker.
Oh yeah.
Well, a lot of people are always surprised when they find out that Ian Fleming wrote a very popular children's
Chitty Chitty Bang Bang.
Chitty Bang Bang.
You
Yes.
did? Oh, wow.
And I want to say that Fleming wrote, I don't know if it was a book he wrote or a story he wrote, but isn't the screenplay done by Roald Dahl? Or is that?
I don't know.
I don't know.
I'm not sure. Yeah.
I'm going to have to look quickly. But no, but of course they knew each other, because I don't know if Jim started it, but he was going to read the book. The screenplay. So the story was the film is based on based on a children's novel called Chitty Chitty Bang Bang: The Magical Car by Ian Fleming, and the screenplay was written by Roald Dahl. And of course, they knew each other in the book that Jim was going to read, called The Irregulars, about their time spying together in Washington, D.C. So
yeah, it's all connected.
It is all connected. It is. It's fascinating.
And
before
Mark,
you go on, sorry,
I'm basically done with the Fleming biography. Just
before you go on, Greg, I will just go to a couple of comments because Hamster's here saying hi to us all. Dr. November,
Berlin Game is great.
Berlin Game by Len Dayton, Never Ending Len Dayton, Eric Ambler. Love Berlin Game. As enjoy any Cold War stories. Thanks, Mark, for inspiring me to take up the spy genre. You're very welcome.
Yeah, thank you, Mark. You inspired me too.
Well, thank you. And William says, thank you, Greg, for your description of the new Fleming biography. And just again before, one last thing about Bond, I did look it up while you were talking. Ian Fleming, who was a keen bird watcher living in Jamaica, was familiar with the books by American ornithologist James Bond, and chose that name as the author for his hero of Casino Royale, apparently because he wanted a name that sounded as ordinary as possible. So
that is such a fun little piece of trivia. I love that.
Well, I just love the way that a name that probably was really ordinary, and now it's like one of the most famous names out there. So, Greg, continue.
Okay. Well,
wait,
Mark,
before you continue, I'm so sorry, but I think I need to get going, unfortunately.
Yes.
It went by so fast, but I'm still going to watch you guys. I just have to get
thanks for showing up and talking.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. I
have a good
appreciate it. Yeah, thank you.
See you soon.
Bye. I'll see you in the chat.
So, can you still see us when she goes?
Yep,
or are
I
you...
can see and hear you.
Okay, good. So now, for me, the main event, I'm dying to know what you thought of this.
I liked it.
Okay.
I don't know if I would call it a corker.
Okay.
But I did find this a fascinating story. And I don't know if we should go too much revisiting what you had to say. But it's an interesting premise for a spy book.
Yeah.
Because at least the main narrator is not really supposed to be a spy.
He's not at all, is he? I mean, he's so incompetent, really.
He really is. There's a scene in here where the police officer's going like, I know you were stupid. That's why I let you do it. But you were really stupider than I thought you would be.
Because I think he says something. He says, I thought I had, what is it? I thought I had overestimated you, whereas in reality, I severely underestimated. No, sorry. I thought I underestimated you, but in reality, I completely overestimated you.
But it's also a mystery story.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It had that feel of that kind of Agatha Christie.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I actually just finished a P.D. James novel before this, and I sort of got those. I mean, you don't have the police detective. It's hard, but yeah. So the general premise is, if you're new, is this teacher is a photographer. You know, he's a language teacher, but his passion is photography, and he has a very nice camera. I forgot the brand, and he's taking pictures of lizards. That and then he takes his film to be developed, and the police come in and they arrest him and say, well, why are you taking pictures? Was it torpedoes or something
Yeah.
You're a spy. He goes, I didn't take those pictures. I didn't. And eventually the police released him because they figure in this, we'll just call it a bed and breakfast, like you did. It's a number of guests. Someone out there used your camera to take pictures. And then it goes in like, how did it actually happen? Now, the one thing, can we mention that little tiny spoiler? Do you think we okay? It's not a huge spoiler.
I mean, it's the book was written in 1938, right? So I mean,
the thing is, it's not a big one. Apparently, in this bed and breakfast, there are 2 cameras of the same name and brand and model, and the person picked up the wrong camera and took the pictures.
well, I don't think that's a spoiler, Greg, because they mention it. Actually, the police are aware of this in the first.
They don't know how.
They don't know how it happened, but they know because of the serial number on the insurance form. Yeah.
Right. But would you not notice that it was someone else? I mean, I know this is an iPhone, but would you not notice if you picked up someone else's iPhone of the same make and model, your dents and your scratches would be different?
Well, I don't know, because it was so expensive.
Maybe.
For him, at least, he would have kept extra care of it. So
Maybe,
I don't know. But he did say that he's like, I was a bit confused where I thought I had taken 8 shots and there were actually 11. But maybe I'd taken one or the other. I mean,
that's a minor detail.
Yeah.
And I liked working through all the guests and trying to pick out who was the spy.
Yeah.
Now, no, I won't tell you. I had a favorite, and my favorite was based on something that was personal to me.
Right.
Now, Mark, if there's a list of spies in the book, and I'm trying not to give away, but there is something in that list of spies that set off an alarm bell for me.
Right.
Let's just I won't say it. I won't.
Tell me in the
I'll
green
tell you
room.
in the green room once we get done.
I will say, I mean, the reason I give it corker status, right, and it's often not to do with the way it's written or the way it's plotted. I base it quite often on the amount of fun I have reading a book, right?
Right.
And I had fun. This to me was a fun book. There were a few holes in it. To be honest with you, the actual spy, when you find out who it was, I was a little disappointed because I felt like, okay, maybe, I don't know. I maybe I wanted it to be somebody else as well. Yeah. But little disappointed. But the overall fun, the characters, the
setup was just so perfect.
Yeah.
And I could feel for the narrator. I can't pronounce his last name. It's a Hungarian name.
Vadassi, I think.
Vladi or Vlasi or whatever.
Vadassi, yeah.
This bumbling teacher of languages getting caught up in this whole scheme where the police are going to throw him to the wolves if he doesn't find the real culprit.
Yeah. Well, I think what's interesting as well is that, of course, the hero is not English or American. He is Hungarian.
Right.
Or he's stateless, isn't he?
No. And he's now under Czechoslovakian.
Yugoslavian.
Yugoslavian.
Yeah. But that I thought was interesting because I don't know too many English authors, especially writing in the 30s or whatever, where the hero wouldn't have been English.
Yeah.
Which was kind of interesting, maybe.
It was. It was also interesting is that I think he mentioned they wrote the book in the 30s.
Yeah.
But did not publish it until 1952.
Yeah.
So it sat in his drawer for at least a decade.
No, he. I don't know. I find him enjoyable, and that's the thing. I haven't finished Cause for Alarm, which is the third one of his books that I've read this month, but I'm nearly there, and that's also very good. This time the hero is English, and there's an American a rather dodgy American. I can't decide if he's a goodie or a baddie yet, but it's also very good. Also in the 30s though. It's set in fascist Italy actually.
Okay. Well,
So
based on this one, I want more.
yeah,
I mean, that in itself is a recommendation.
yeah,
I mean, even if you call it quirk, I'm calling it good enough to read another book. So
yeah.
definitely pick
It's
up.
like, it's one of those, just get lost in it and have
Yeah.
fun. And you could feel yourself there. I kind of felt like how sometimes I'm sitting on the beach with them as well, But what was interesting as well was the portrayal of the only English character in it. Was that he was, not. The thing is, people have said, and I was reading some comments and things, that in that period he was very left-leaning, Eric Ambler. Maybe
Okay.
had even communist or socialist sympathies, and perhaps that's why the English middle class major is a bit of a ridiculous character, is because maybe he's mocking that middle class kind of thing. But I don't know. And what I find about him, I don't know if you agree with me. I mean, if you look at some of these authors from the 30s, Ambler seems very modern in his style. He's writing in a time where it's like, the 30s or whatever, but the words I don't know, the way to me, it seems very fresh. It seems almost like he's writing it in the 80s, for example, and setting it in the 30s or something like that. Maybe the 60s and setting it in the 30s rather than actually writing these things.
Well, also, it was published in the 50s.
Yeah.
So he could have revised his draft from the 30s.
Yeah, but I read Mask of Demetrius, and it was a similar situation with him, and even this one as well. He's just, I think he's just very fresh. He's not dry at all, and he really he can tell a good yarn, definitely.
Absolutely.
So
I'm going to pick up some more of his eventually. I was just fortunate to pick up this at a used bookstore for $5, but I am going to probably grab some on Kindle when they go on sale, and I can buy books again.
Farah says, I put Epitaph for a Spy on my list to try. I've also never heard of Eric Ambler before this event. Well, the thing is, I'd heard of him.
I'd heard of him, but never read it.
Never thought to pick him up and read him. I mean, he's going to be worthwhile, I suppose, when, he's got 6 novels extant in the Penguin Modern Classics range. I suppose that's something that they're still there.
Okay.
So I guess he is. I mean, he's very influential. I think you can even see there was something in. I don't know if it was Epitaph or a Spy, or the one I'm reading now, but there was something in there that I saw and I thought, John le Carré lifted that. He took almost that phrase that Ambler writes in something, and he just somehow makes it relevant to something in. I think it was in one of the Carla books or not, but I remember thinking, yeah, I can see very clearly some influence that Ambler had on le Carré in that particular line. But I highlighted it in the Kindle, of course, but I haven't got it with me. So
that's cool. So I think that pretty much puts a fork in for me for Dr. November. I mean, I'm still going to be going on with the Fleming biography through next week. So
I tell you, you've got me bursting to almost end this chat and pick it up. Actually, after what you said, right, I got to go, everybody. I want to read this book. So, but have you anything else you're reading this month that's not November, Dr. November related?
Well, I sort of picked up a book. It's a reread. It's Night by Elie Wiesel. That's his autobiography, his time in, the concentration camps. And there's just a lot of parallels early on before he gets sent to a concentration camp. He talks about, especially in the introduction, how Germany at one point said, they were satisfied just to make sure there's no room for Jews in Germany, and then sort of escalated to just get them out, and then they start rounding them up by force. And not to get too overly political, but I just see these massive parallels coming down when Trump takes office, and he's threatening to round up all the illegal immigrants by using the military. And I'm going like, where are you gonna put all these people?
Yeah.
How are you gonna treat them?
Yeah.
My guess is they're not gonna treat them well. Maybe not as bad as this, but it could. I wonder if it could get that bad,
Yeah.
And just reading this, like, how could you ever want to round up a group of people and basically imprison them? It's just astonishing inhumanity.
It is horrific. Because actually, I just wanted. I don't know where you read it, but I just wanted to go back because when you said concentration camp, it got me thinking of. It's mentioned. They mention concentration camp in Epitaph for a Spy, right? And then I just looked it up, but Greg, it was published before the Second World War.
It was?
Yeah. It was published in 1938 because it says because that's what when I was looking up, it says the novel was published and set just before World War II, and it says the book contained an early description of German concentration camps based on Ambler's conversations with refugees and reading of left-wing newspapers. The Daily Mail actually serialized this book and made Ambler a household name. And the first film adaptation of it was called Hotel Reserve, and it was in 1944, and it starred James Mason.
Okay, because I'm just looking at my copyright page. It says 1952.
Could be American. Yours is Black Lizard.
It could
whatever.
be.
I don't have mine to hand. I don't think. No.
The only reason I said that is that, like, in my database of books I'm reading, I'm sort of marking down the publication date. I'm sort of like tracking when the books I read have been published, so I can sort of like how many books in a decade I've been reading, just out of curiosity. So I marked it as published in 1952, but you said it's actually 1938.
1938, Hodder and Stoughton, the UK.
Okay.
But it's very, very possible, of course, given obviously the outbreak of war and all this, that perhaps it just didn't get published in America until 1952.
Very possible.
But it was a Zeiss Icon Contax was the camera. But what's funny is it's actually been filmed 3 times. A second television adaptation in 1953 with Peter Cushing as Joseph or Joseph Fadassi. So, could have been interesting. All right, got a couple of comments. Oh, Randy's here. So, hi, Randy. Yes, mate. I think we're just finishing up, probably.
Yeah.
But no worries. I wasn't sure if you wanted to join or not, but hopefully you can next time. Oh, you didn't get the email? Oh, well, we're as I said, we're rounding it up, mate. So yeah, I don't know. I'm sure I sent it to you. I'll have to check it. But yes, I think it's a wrap, Greg. Probably.
Unless you've been reading something else that you want to talk about.
Well, the thing is, I haven't actually. I've had quite a busy week, so I haven't actually had a chance to get much reading done, and I didn't finish everything. I really thought I would finish. This Ambler book before today, but in the end, I didn't. So maybe over the course of the weekend. So
okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Randy. I don't know why. I know I definitely have your right email address, but I don't know. I'll have to check that I actually sent it. So apologies for that, mate. But we'll be in touch. I'll send you a message later or over the.
So we're going to do this next week?
Yeah, I hope so. Because I want to know how you get in at the how you get on with Fleming. If I don't, of course, pick it up by
Okay.
then. And I'm desperate to find out how far it gets on with the one-legged woman
Yeah.
linguist. So that would be fantastic. And
And
hopefully,
I think I can do next week if you want me to.
yeah,
I had
sure.
another project where I was doing horror 74,
Yeah.
and that project just sort of like it reached its end a little earlier than I thought it would, but it's all right.
Kind of fizzled out then.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Hopefully, Randy will be around and Jim will
Yeah,
be back.
Randy.
We'll have a full complement for the last live of Dr. November. So, good to see you. Hi, sorry,
Hey,
yes, it
Time
is the
Top.
end. It is the end. So my thanks to all of you for watching. My thanks to Farah for joining us, and of course, my thanks as ever to Greg for coming on as well. So I'm sure I can say from both of us, have a lovely weekend, and you will
Indeed.
see us on our respective channels very soon, I'm sure. Do take care, everybody. From me here in the Czech Republic, it's good night, and from Greg
Jimmy,
there,
it's a good afternoon.
good afternoon. Cheerio.
Bye.